Hello, today we're going to be starting a neural system, and specifically the organization of the general nervous system. All right, we're going to start out here with the nervous system. We have the central nervous system, right, which has a control center that we split into two parts. We have the brain, which we just studied, bodily functions, perceptions, cognition, and we have the spinal cord that relays information and does a special case known as reflexes. All right, in the central nervous system, we have the peripheral nervous system, right, which we also split into two sections. Here, we have the somatic, which deals with external body. We have input of sensation, the sensory nervous system, and we have the output or the motor nervous system. This section over here we've talked about some, which is the autonomic nervous system. Internal body, we have the sympathetic that arouses the organs and the parasympathetic that relaxes organs. Now let's take a look at a typical event in the nervous system. Here you've seen this wonderful picture. This happens to be by Escher. You're looking at that and you're looking at that, and what is actually going on? Well, it's a very complex situation here. We have our picture, which is the stimulus, which will then go to a receptor. Within the eye, it's going to go to afferent, or sensory neurons. Within the eye is going to then transduce, which means that it changes it into energy that neurons can read. We can then have conduction, which is the speed of transferring information. We need to integrate all that information, and all those steps then create a thought. We now need to send it back out, right? We have the conduction, the speed of sending information. We are going to have that sent to interneurons that are going to disperse it to the correct places, right? We have efferent motor. So you're going to scratch your chin and say, which way are they going? Now, this is very simplified, but it does give you an idea of the complexity of the whole system every time we think or do anything. We have a special case here, which are reflexes. All right, normally reflexes go through a stimulus. We do the transduction, which means, that's right, transferring neural to neural energy. It's going to go to the afferent or incoming nerves to the spinal cord. We're going to have this conduction, and then we're going to send it out to the efferent, and we're going to step off the coals. But there are some cases, and they're not completely sure how it happens, in which trance-like states can bypass these reflexes. Therefore, you get phenomenons like coal walking, okay? People lying on pins, people being able to go into hypnotic states and being able to create pain. All those kinds of trance-like states tend to bypass these systems. Okay, now the conscious stimulus response is very similar, okay, in which we have the sensory receptor, right, which then is going to send it to the sensory, but instead of to the spinal cord, it is going to go through that more complex process here, integrating it into the brain cells. Right? It's going to go then to interneurons, which will disperse it to the efferent neurons, right, and then we go to the effector muscles. Right, so here we have, this is inside the central nervous system, and this is in the peripheral nervous system. So, in the case of reflexes, how is that different? Okay, let's take a look at that picture again, where we look at the stimulus, receptor, sensory, and here we go to that integration center. Instead of it being in the brain, it is now in the spinal cord. It's going to go to the motor neuron and then exit. This is known as the reflex arc. All right, so is the reflex arc, okay, the main connector here is these special kinds of neurons, which are known as interneurons, okay, that reside in the spinal cord and sort of direct the information to the correct spot. Okay, so if we look at the knee-jerk response, which is another kind of reflex, okay, what happens if you tap there? Well, try it. will jerk up. Okay? Why? Sit down and see if you can draw through the map of what goes on with your afferent and your efferent and your interneurons. All right, so let's review real quick. We have the message, stimulus, receptor, sensory, control center, and this will be the brain if you have conscious thought, or this will go to the spinal cord, motor neuron, effector. How do you remember efferent and afferent? Effector is E for, well, let's see if I can write it, exit. Ah, that was so cool. All right. So let's try this. Can you name the neurons? Neuron number 2, right here. Yep, sensory neuron. Let's try number 3. Interneuron. And 4. Motor neuron. All right, that's all, folks.